So with that, hello everyone and welcome to Software Architecture Conference, the second edition. And then we are here to discuss more about event-driven architecture to process Microsoft 365 resource activities. So what we are going to kind of discuss in this session is like we use Microsoft 365 day in day out. So whether you are working on a Microsoft technology or maybe non-Microsoft technology, at least we deal with Microsoft Teams, SharePoint on a daily basis. No one can deny that because Microsoft is everywhere. Microsoft 365 is everywhere. We have got Yammer, we have got SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, everything covering you on your day-to-day kind of an activities. So there are for example, if you think of this from an organization perspective, there are too many activities which are happening in your Microsoft 365 environment. So that means number of teams are getting created in your environment, number of channels getting created in your environment, number of files being uploaded to your SharePoint and everything, right? So there are too many things which are happening in your organization. And then just not about the organization, maybe even you are inviting the guest users, they are performing activities onto your platform. So in those kind of cases, event driven architecture becomes very much important, so that whenever there is an event, for example, event, that means simply in simple terms, I created one team in Microsoft Teams team. It is kind of an one event. I created channel inside that, it is kind of an one event. I uploaded a file to SharePoint, it is kind of an event. I deleted something, it is kind of an event. So when we have lot many user activities, lot many admin activities, we need to definitely go ahead and start looking into those events, right? Because there might be certain events that we want to monitor, or at least there are certain events that we want to go ahead, hook up to them, and then start processing them further. Let's say, for example, I created a private channel in Microsoft Teams. Probably I want to apply some kind of an labels on top of it, or maybe I want to do some changes on the backend SharePoint side which is available. So in those cases, this event driven architecture becomes very much important, so that we need to hook up to that event so that we can process that further. And this is what we are going to talk about throughout our session, right? So I hope I was able to set the context for this session. All right, so the agenda that we have got is we will quickly see like what is the importance of monitoring the Microsoft 365 environment and why should we monitor those, and then what are the other mechanisms through which we should be able to monitor. And in those mechanisms, pull and push mechanisms are very much important or mostly used. So we'll also see like what is mean by pull mechanism, what is mean by push mechanism, and then we will mainly focus on to the change notifications. And then here we'll be specifically talking about graph APIs. So if in case you're not aware of this, so there is something called as Microsoft Graph in the Microsoft 365 territory, like wherein all of the changes which are happening in your environment, or maybe all of the notifications or all of the events which are happening, those can be tracked through Microsoft Graph APIs. And then we are going to talk about a simple scenario wherein we will handle the Teams channel creation with the graph notifications using Azure functions. So there is one way that we are going to show you, but again, it is not just limited to one way. There are other aspects as well that you will be able to do along with that. So that is what we are going to cover in this session. So before we start with the session, a quick introduction. Myself, Nandadeep Nachan. I am Microsoft MVP for M365 apps and services as well as business applications. I'm from Pune, India. And onto the right hand side, here are a few of the social media handlers to get in touch with me. As well, I'm author of 3 books. So if in case you have got any discussion, go ahead and send me a request on LinkedIn or Twitter, and then happy to connect with you. And with me today is Smita.
Hello, all. Myself Smita Nasan. I am from Pune, India. I am a Microsoft MVP as well as Microsoft MCT, and these are some of my social handlers by which you can just get in touch with me. And I'm author of 2 books, so if you have any queries, then please get in touch with us.
All right. So with that, let's get started. Let us first discuss like what is mean by monitoring your Microsoft 365 environment. So Microsoft 365 is nothing but software as a service available from Microsoft, which includes various apps and services, including OneDrive, SharePoint, Exchange, Microsoft Teams, Yammer, and many more, which can help you to do your day-to-day kind of an work. Okay. So through Microsoft Teams, you can conduct the meetings, you can have a chat with your colleagues. Through SharePoint, you will be able to upload your files, you will be able to do your content. In OneDrive, you'll be able to do that privately. Through Exchange, you will be able to send out emails. So there are various things, various apps, various services available under the umbrella of Microsoft 365. And that is where monitoring this environment is very much essential, right? Because now that you must have seen that there is a huge increase in the usage of Microsoft 365 environments. Most of the organizations are adopting to the Microsoft 365 environments, and then they are having their own Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, Yammer, all those this kind of a setup. And when we have huge increase in the usage of Microsoft 365 environment, tracking becomes very much essential for the user activities. So whether it could be any of the user activity or whether it could be admin activities. So user activities is pretty much simple, like someone uploads the file or maybe someone deletes the file, those kind of and simple things. Admin activities are pretty much dangerous, like let's say for example someone changes any kind of a setting knowingly or unknowingly. So in those cases, monitoring all those environments so that we'll be able to track what has happened, and then we'll be able to go ahead and process that further, right? So that's the reason monitoring your Microsoft 365 environment is very much essential and as well as very much complicated as well. So again, there are pretty much potential security risk associated with admin activities, because user at the banks can do only things which are allocated to them as a part of their role. For example, they can just delete a file maybe which they have access to, but probably they won't be able to delete your entire environment because they don't have that much of rights. But at least with admin activities it is pretty much difficult, right? So what we have got here is like whenever someone takes any kind of an action, let's say for example any of the user uploads a file or maybe any of the user creates a team or a channel in your Microsoft 365 environments, everything gets logged into the one system called as audit logs. So this audit log is a huge database of all of the activities which are happening all across your environments, right? So audit logs are again good thing to look into what kind of an activities happening by each of the user as well as all of the admins that we have got, and then we'll be able to process that activities further, right? So for from that perspective, monitoring is an essential for your Microsoft 365 environments. So maybe just forget about Microsoft 365 environments. In any of the environments, let's say for example if you are using Azure environments or maybe in any of the other environments, monitoring is always essential, and then we need to take care of what are the things happening inside of that environment. So what we are going to do now is that there are various ways available in which we'll be able to monitor our environments, but we are just trying to focus on one aspect of it, which is with the graph notification. So that there are various aspects like let's say for example something is happening, you want to get notified, or maybe you can poll the system at a regular basis to see like what has happened. So as I said, let's say for example someone makes any changes to the OneDrive or to the SharePoint, Exchange or Teams, all those activities, whether it is a user activity or admin activity, get logged into the Microsoft 365 audit logs, and then you can probably poll that audit log at a regular interval to see like what has happened. Otherwise, we are going to show you one example wherein you will be able to do the graph notifications, which will notify you when there is some kind of an events are happening, right? All right. So just moving ahead, as I said, whenever we want to go ahead and do the monitoring, there are two mechanisms available. First one is a pull mechanism and then push mechanism. So talking more about Microsoft 365 related environments, pooling is something like we will regularly go ahead to the Microsoft 365 audit logs and we'll try to pull the information from that audit log. So all of the user activities, admin activities, they get logged into the audit log. Let's say, for example, as of now, I delete a file on SharePoint, that will get added into audit logs by my name that Nandadeep has deleted this file at 7:30 p.m. IST, right? So what I can do is probably I can develop a system which can pull the information at a regular interval from those audit logs. So here is one technical example of how you'll be able to do that from Power PowerShell. So there is a commandlet available called as search-unified audit logs under the Exchange Online, through which you will be able to search for those unified audit logs. And again, you can also specify maybe a date range if in case you know that okay, the event has happened during this time or this date range. You can go ahead, specify that date range, and then you will be able to get that information about what are the audit logs which are happened. Okay, so this is one way that you need to go ahead, pull the information from the system at a regular interval so that you will be able to see what are the events that had happened, and then you can take action on it. The second way or second mechanism in which we'll be able to achieve this is with the push mechanism. So push mechanism is very much simple, or at least very much simple when we talk about it. That we are going to get the notification whenever something is happening, right? So let's say, for example, I want to generate some kind of an mechanism through which, let's say, someone creates a team in Microsoft Teams. I want to get notified, or maybe someone creates a channel inside Microsoft Teams team. I want to get notified. So that way it will run as a push mechanism. So now that probably if it is getting overcomplicated, I just want to put it in a simple words. So let's say, for example, I want to buy a mobile which is recently launched into the market, or probably not available generally into the market. So what I can do is I will go to the mobile Shopee, and every day while going to office, and I will ask like, okay, is this model available? So the shop owner will say it whether it is available, or maybe he can request me to come back in couple of days. Again, in couple of days I can go back to the shop and I will ask him like, whether that mobile model is available or not. Okay, so this is kind of an pull mechanism. Every time I'm going to the system, that means that mobile Shopee, and checking for the availability of that mobile, or that model. And then at the same time I am or maybe using my resources to go ahead, poll all those kind of a thing, and process those event logs. The second thing is pretty much simple, push mechanism, wherein I can just give my mobile number, or maybe email address, or maybe WhatsApp number nowadays, to the mobile Shopee owner, and I can just say him that whenever this model is available, go ahead and give me a call, or maybe just send me a text on WhatsApp, and then I can get in touch with you. So that way I'm making my life pretty much simpler. I don't want to go ahead, get polling all that information every time, but I will keep it very much simple, that whenever there is a availability of that event, or maybe of that mobile in this case, go ahead and notify me, and then I can process that information further, right? So this is a simple difference between pull and push mechanism. So again, for example, if you ask me like whether the pull mechanism is preferred over push mechanism or the other, I will say there is no rule of thumb that pull or push mechanism is the preferred way, but based on what kind of an scenario that you want to develop, or maybe what kind of a specific use case you're targeting to, go ahead with pull or push kind of a mechanism. But in this session we are just going to show you push mechanism, because that way at least you don't need to pull the system for a frequent time, but you will be just get a notification through which will it will make your life very much easy. Because when you are thinking about Microsoft 365 kind of an environment for an organization, for a huge organization, there are various things happening in the background. You cannot monitor like what is happening at each of the desk of your employee. So there must be too many events going on. Not all of them needs to be triggered every time to the system and take action upon, but again there are certain things that you need to know about. So let's say, for example, I will take an example of Microsoft Teams again. So I don't probably care about all of the teams or all of the channels which are getting created into the teams every day, but probably I'm just interested to know like how many private channels are getting created into the team, so that I can apply some kind of a security controls on top of it. So in that case, instead of polling these logs every time, I can go ahead with the simple graph notification. So whenever there is a private channel that gets created into my ecosystem of Microsoft 365, specifically in Microsoft Teams, it is just going to notify me that okay, this is the information about the team and the channel that got created. Go ahead and process it. Okay, so this is some kind of a scenario that we are going to talk about more on this. But before that, let us talk about what is mean by this change in notifications, right?
So let us first talk about this Microsoft Graph. So the Microsoft Graph is a gateway to data and intelligence in Microsoft 365 platform. And a Microsoft Graph exposes the REST API and client libraries to access data across Microsoft 365 core services such as Calendar, Teams, To Do, Outlook, People, Planner, OneDrive, OneNote, and many more. So this Microsoft Graph uses a webhook mechanism to track the changes in resources and deliver the change notification to the clients. So the change notification features enable the notifications applications to be alert when the data is created or changed in Microsoft Graph. So when a particular entity is created, updated, or changed, Microsoft Graph submits an HTTP post to the specified custom endpoints. So your custom endpoints listen for those messages and act on them based on the logic defined by your business requirements. So let's get more deep into it, and then let's see what can you get notification for. So you can get a notification on the messages, events, contacts, users, groups, conversations, OneDrive files, and alerts. So this allows you to stay up to date and sync with the data that is accessible via Microsoft Graph. So it also allows you to avoid implementing a polling infrastructure where you submit the request to Microsoft Graph at regular intervals to get the most recent changes. So instead, you can just go back to Microsoft Graph asking for the changes when a notification is received by your application. So this way, you will never miss a change to data that is exposed or was accessible via Microsoft Graph. So some of the example scenario are like when an email is received, you want to translate it from its native language to another language and make it easier for customer to read that particular email. Also, when a new user is added to your organization, you want to automatically create an account for that user in your corporate third party time tracking system and send them an email alerting them that there is a new account has been set up. One more example is like, for example, when a new file is added to OneDrive, you want to take some action on it. So these are the some of the example scenario, and it depends on your business cases also. So let's see about this subscription request. So your application is notified of this activity by creating a subscription with Microsoft Graph. So the subscription tells Microsoft Graph what entities you want to receive notification about and the address of your web API to post them to. So the developer must renew the subscriptions for notifications as needed, as well as the subscription have an expiration time associated with them. So if the subscription is not renewed, it will eventually expire and you will have to keep a track of the subscription and make sure that you renew it. So the change notifications that your app receives from Microsoft Graph can allow you to track the changes of entities if you need to replicate the data in your own system. And about the subscription response, so after the subscription is successfully registered, response HTTP 201 created will be written. Then manage the subscription lifecycle. So the change notification subscriptions will be valid for a specified amount of time only. So after that time, the subscription is automatically be perked from Microsoft Graph, and this means if your application does nothing after creating the subscription, it will only receive the notification up to the expiration time specified when that subscription is created. So to address this, you could have another process on a timer that verifies the notification are received within the subscription window, and if not, you can assume the subscription has likely expired and needs to be recreated. The recommended approach is to have one process that handles the change notifications and a separate process that creates, monitors, manages, and renew the change notification subscriptions.
All right, so with that, let's move to one kind of an demo, like how we can handle those Teams channel creation with graph notification using Azure functions. Okay, so for that, let me just quickly switch to my development environment. Let me just open up the Teams. So the scenario here is like whenever someone creates a channel in Microsoft Teams, I want to get a notification so that I will be able to process that channel. So I'm not doing anything fancy on this channel here, but I'm just setting one description onto that channel that this channel has been processed by the graph notification. Okay, but in real scenarios, if you want to if you want to just know, like whenever there is a private channel gets created, you want to apply some kind of a security controls, or maybe if you want to change something, you should be able to do that. So right now you can see that I'm into Microsoft Teams, and what I will do is I will just go ahead and create one channel under team. So this is the team called as life and music. I'm just going to add a channel. I'm not going to give it any fancy name. I will just call it as music one, and then probably I can set the visibility, whether it is a standard, private, or shared. Okay, so I'm just selecting private as a random one, and I can just click on create. As soon as the channel gets created, we are going to get notification via Microsoft Graph notification, and then we are going to see the description getting changed. So now that if you see here, quickly it has changed the description, like this channel is processed by graph notifications. Okay, so this is not the default description that you get with Microsoft Teams channel creation, but when I had created this channel, my graph notification sent me the notification saying that okay, there is one channel that got created, and in the code behind, I have written a code to set this description to this channel is being processed by graph notification. Okay, so this was very much fast, right? So as soon as there was a channel got created, I got a notification and I processed that. Okay, so let us see like how in the practice we are going to do it and how we should be able to do that. So for that, let me again come back to the slides. So this is the architecture that we are going to use here. So what we have first is we do have Azure Active Directory, wherein we are going to register the Azure ID app registration, and then we do have that Microsoft Azure function, which is responsible for having the subscription. And then what it can do is it can get the access token, so that we'll be able to validate ourselves again that against that Azure Active Directory, because all of our users are into Active Directory. So first thing is that we need to get authenticated ourselves. So we'll get that access token. Once we get the access token, we need to have a subscription created for that. Okay, because now the subscription is like whenever a channel gets created in Microsoft Teams, I want to get the notification. So obviously there is a subscription that I need. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create the subscription. If in case you just want to have a documentation view of this subscription, so here is the Microsoft documentation on how you can go ahead and create the subscription, right? So this is the documentation available. Probably I will post the link in the chat window as well, so that you will be able to explore it more. So this is the documentation talks about what kind of a notifications or subscription that we can do. But again, we do have certain limitations here, like since Microsoft 365 is a huge app and services, and not for all of the apps we have got all the events covered by this graph notification, but at least there are few events covered by this. For example, channel getting created or chat message is being posted. So all those are listed here. Let's say probably you ask me like for example, if any of the file is getting uploaded to OneDrive, do we have an event here? So probably at this moment we don't have, but in the future we will definitely have. So the limitation here clearly is that not all of the events that can be subscribed to, but most of them are. So let's say, for example, I just want to quickly uh, talk about channels. So let me just check here. So here you can see that we have got for the Teams channel, we have got all those subscription available, so that I can create this subscription for whenever there is a channel that gets created. Okay, so this is a create subscription kind of a thing, and whenever you will create a subscription, that subscription has got a validity. So that means this particular subscription is valid for only 60 minutes. So within that 60 minutes of window, you need to go ahead and update that subscription one more time, so that you can maintain the subscription and you can continue to get all the notifications. So how you can update the subscription? Again, we do have a nice documentation available from Microsoft. So there is just one REST API that you need to call out, and then it will help you to go ahead and get the subscription, right? So here is the graph API, like graph.microsoft.com/subscription. You're going to get all the subscription. And if in case you just want to go ahead and get one particular subscription, you can specify the ID for that. And then you're going to get all the information back. Just in case you just want to see like how this one looks like from Postman, let me just open it up. But the bottom line here is that you need to have active subscription, so that you'll be able to get all the notifications. And again, as I said, not for all of the events we do have the notifications mechanism available or graph notifications available, but for most of those we do have. All right, so as my postman is opening, so first thing what we are going to do is we are going to get the access token. Second thing, we are going to create or maintain that kind of a subscription, and then we are going to see how we can handle all those notifications for the channel created. Okay, so postman seems to be taking some time, but okay, not to worry. Let us go ahead with the other parts. I should have kept it open earlier, but okay, yeah, here it is. All right, so in the postman I already have created the um, collection for my graph notification. So here we have got a request for get access token. So what we simply do here is that I have stored this client ID and client secret into a variable. But before that, from where we go get those notifications? Okay, so or that client ID and client secret. So first thing is that we need to have the Azure AD app registration done for that. So if in case you just want to see how we can do that, so you can directly go to the Azure portal, and from the Azure portal you can navigate to the app registration. Okay, so once you are into the app registration, here you can click on new registration and you will be able to do the new app registration. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to search for the app registration that I already have created for this demo, which is called as coming back to the postman. So here you can see that we do have one post call to log in, and then we are simply passing on the client ID and client secret. Once I pass it on, I'm going to get the access token. So access token is a huge string, something like this, which you cannot remember obviously. So this is the string that we are going to get. And then next thing is that what we need to do is we need to, using this access token, we need to create a subscription for this graph API, and then I'm just going to get all of the subscription. And since I already have one subscription created into this tenant, right? So, oh, could not send the request. Let us try one more time. All right. So now that we can, you can see that we do have all of the subscription that you can see. And here I just have one subscription, which is for get all channels. And that's the reason that notification that we got onto the Teams is working. All right. So coming back here, okay, I'm unable to find the graph API. So, okay, let us go into this graph notification. So this is our Azure AD app registration. And from here you should be able to get the client ID as well as the client secret that you can create. So you can just click on new client secret and you will be able to get a new client secret which you will be able to get used for authentication. The very important thing here is API permission. So since now that we are talking about how to get notified when a team channel gets created, at least we want to have the channel dot read basic dot all kind of an permission so that we'll be able to create that subscription. Okay, so this is our first step, that we need to have the subscription. Okay, so let us go back to this diagram again, or this architecture diagram again, now that we have got this subscription. But again, as I said, this subscription will be valid for 60 minutes. You need to go ahead and maintain that subscription by updating the subscription for next 60 minutes. Once you have the subscription, what it is going to do is whenever there is a change into the resource, for example, whenever there is a channel that gets created in your tenancy, it is going to notify you. And where it can notify is the URL that you have specified while creating that notification, and then it will keep posting all those notification to that URL, which is as a function URL in this case. And then we are going to process all those notifications. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is that this is some kind of a create subscription payload. So we just need to post this to the subscription by passing on the change type. That means we want to have the notification created for the in any kind of a created event onto the get all channels. That means whenever a channel gets created, we want to get notification onto this URL, and this URL could be anything. It could be your any webhook, it could be your Azure function, or even it could be your Azure automation runbook as well. Okay, so that thing you can do. And then we have got expiration date time set for this, which we need to specify. And then we do have a client state. So client state is something kind of a secret client value that you want to validate against. So you don't want that someone that has the notification URL probably directly can send any alert to your system, but you want to have some kind of a security place on top of it with this client state. So this one will just act as a token that if you have a token, I will give you the entry. Otherwise, I will not going to give you the entry. So this one is about creating that subscription. And then we do have the update subscription. Okay, so update subscription is pretty much simple. We just need to provide the ID of the subscription that we have created with the previous endpoint, and then we just need to provide the subscription. So once you do that, at least you have your mechanism ready, and then you will be able to handle all those notifications. So in theory, let us go ahead and see like how that one is happening. So now that I have my function app created, and I have got two function apps ready. First one is for creating as well as maintaining the subscription, and secondly I have got another function app to process all those graph notifications. So firstly, let me just open up the renew graph notification. So since we have created the graph notification, it is our responsibility to go ahead and renew it at a given interval. Let's say for example 60 minutes. Okay, so don't exactly stick to 60 minutes. Maybe do it well before that, maybe 45 minutes or 50 minutes, because sometimes you do the looping of all those functions, but they might not trigger just in time. There might be some delay, and because of that, you probably won't be able to renew that subscription well in time. So quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fall back to the file system so that I can do this live debugging and show it to you. So I do have my client ID, client secret, which is open. Don't do this kind of a programming in the production. Your boss will not like it. But just for this demonstration purpose, I have it open for everyone. So firstly, get the access token, and then once you get the access token, obviously you will return back the notification there, so that now that you are kind of connected to the mechanism, so that whenever you will get the notification from graph endpoint, you are going to process that. So here we have got all those information about all of the graph APIs that we have seen, and then we are just simply going to go ahead and do the patching by increasing the graph notification by 60 minutes. Okay, so that's it. Nothing fancy that we are doing here. So now that, let me again come back to this process graph notification function, which is responsible for processing the graph notification. And here I will show you how the debugging works. Okay, I guess I have 5 minutes remaining probably, so I will be very quick on this debugging, and then I can hand it over back to the next speaker. Right. Okay, so now that our event is about the channel creation, let me again fall back to the file system debugging. And here you can see that this is the response that we are going to send back to our graph notification, saying that okay, I'm ready to process all of the notification that you are sending it to me, by sending the status code as okay, and sending back the same validation token that we have received from graph endpoint. Now that when we will next time, whenever we will get the notification from graph endpoint, we are going to process that. So what we can do is, in that case, we are going to get all the information about the client state, the resource that has changed, and the change type, that means channel added. And we are going to get that resource information in certain kind of a format that you can see onto the screen. So that we need to just parse using the regular expression, so that we can get the actual team ID and channel ID. Once we get that, we are again going to get the access token and then update that channel description by invoking the graph endpoint. All right, so now that we have this debugging session open here. Let me quickly go ahead and add another channel. I will just simply call it as music 2, and we will see like how that debugging is happening. Okay, so let me just add it here, and you can see that instantly whenever I'm creating a message or channel there, I'm getting that notification right here. Okay, so you can see that this is the team ID that I just got created channel on, and then this is the channel ID that I have received, and then my function is ready to process it further. And then down the line here you can see that I'm changing the description to this channel is processed by graph notification. Okay, so this way it makes me very easy to get the notification whenever there is any event is happening into your ecosystem, rather than pulling the entire logs of maybe terabytes or gigabytes and then just trying to find out the information that you are looking out for. So it is kind of an finding the needle into the haystack that out of this many event logs, I'm just trying to see the events which are created for the team created kind of a thing, right? So now that you can see that, if I can come back here, this is the description which is being set here. Okay, so this is kind of a very much simple mechanism that you can use in your day-to-day life to get the notification whenever any of the changes are happening to your resource. All right, quickly, like this one is again another good architecture which is given by Aichabas. So this is the entire blog URL for that. So go ahead and look out for this one as well, which is being done with the Event Hub, which is kind of an more preferable way than using the Azure functions, because let's say for example in a huge organization there are many channels getting created at one go. At least all those events will be stored into the Event Hub, and then those can be processed eventually. If you directly try to process them using Azure functions, probably not many, but at least few events might get lost. Okay, so to avoid all those kind of a thing, go ahead and try use the Event Hubs, so that at least you will get you will at least get the assurity that you are processing all of the events that you should do. All right, so take a look at this architecture as well. Again, it is pretty much simple that she is using the logic apps to get the subscription workflow to create as well as maintain the subscription. And whenever there is an event, that event gets placed into the Event Hub, and then there is another logic apps which is processing that information, and then probably user is getting added to the team, right? So this is kind of another simple mechanism that you can use. So again, I will leave it up to you whether you want to go ahead with the pull mechanism or a push mechanism. But this event notification is again kind of a very much simple mechanism to go ahead and get the notification whenever there is a change, rather than you looking out for that change into a huge log files. All right, okay, so I guess we are well on time, I think so. All right, so with that, thank you very much for having us. And if in case you want to discuss on this topic or anything else further, these are our social media handlers. Go ahead, send us a request on LinkedIn or Twitter, and then happy to discuss with you on this topic.